The Pacers weren't supposed to win. Not these games. Not in these moments. But somehow, time after time, they've defied the odds. Down double digits, momentum slipping, season on the line, and then everything flips. 4 different times this postseason, Indiana has stared down the impossible and turned it into something unforgettable. These aren't just comebacks. They're moments where belief beat the buzzer. Let's break down 4 of the most jaw-dropping, logic-defiant, pulse-pounding playoff turnarounds you'll ever see. Game 5. First round, on the road, and already ahead in the series. All the Pacers needed was one more win. But by the time the second half started, that looked like a fantasy. Milwaukee had come out swinging. Giannis was sidelined, but Dame was doing enough for 2. They had the crowd, the energy, the tempo. Indiana looked frozen. They couldn't find the gaps, couldn't keep up. Down 18 halfway through the third, this was starting to feel like the kind of loss that snowballs into a Game 6 disaster. But then came the shift. It wasn't some explosive run, it was slower, grittier, like dragging yourself out of quicksand. Rick. Carlisle made a quiet but crucial change. He sat down the second big and let Siakam work as the small ball 5. Suddenly the floor stretched, and the game changed with it. Haliburton stopped looking for the flashy pass and started attacking. The rim. Pull-up threes turned into downhill drives. And once Milwaukee started helping off shooters, Nembhard and Nesmith punished them. The spacing forced the Bucks into rotation after rotation, and every time they got there just a second too late. But it wasn't just offense. Indiana switched to a trapping scheme to blow up Dame's pick-and-roll game. Every time Lopez came up to screen, the Pacers sent a second body-forcing Lillard to give it up early. And when he tried to ISO against Caruso late, nothing. Hands in his face, help, ready behind him, and no open looks. What had been a 90-point Bucks clinic through 3 quarters was suddenly a 12-point fourth-quarter disaster. With 1:14 to go, Haliburton hit a transition pull-up from 28 feet to tie the game. Crowd stunned. Next possession, Siakam bodies Portis for the go-ahead bucket. And then, as if the whole arena paused to watch, Caruso rips a steal on an inbound and throws down a dagger dunk. In just 8 minutes, Indiana had flipped a blowout into a victory, outscoring the Bucks 29-9 to end the game. Milwaukee never recovered. That was the night the Pacers stopped playing like the underdogs and started playing like a team that didn't care what the odds said. Game 7 at Madison Square Garden. That sentence alone carries weight. And for Indiana, it meant stepping into a building built on pressure, on history, on heartbreak. The Knicks were bruised but unbroken. Jalen Brunson playing through pain, the Garden crowd roaring from tip-off, and the Pacers looked shaky early. By the end of the first quarter, they were down double digits again. The moment was massive, and for a second it felt too big, but the Pacers didn't blink, they adjusted. The first spark came not from Haliburton or Siakam, but from T.J. McConnell. Off the bench, he turned the tempo inside out. He picked up full court, pushed pace off every miss, and forced the Knicks to scramble. Suddenly, New York wasn't dictating the terms anymore, Indiana was. McConnell's pressure made Brunson work for every single touch. The moment he crossed half court, there were bodies flying at him. Traps, hedges, delays. And while that chaos brewed, the Pacers quietly started finding rhythm on offense. Siakam went to work early in the second face-up jumpers, baseline spins, high-low cuts. The Knicks kept sending late help, but it never came fast enough. And when they switched, he bullied smaller defenders into the paint. At the same time, Haliburton started hunting mismatches. Anytime Hartenstein got pulled out onto the perimeter, Haliburton dance crossover, hesitation, step back, bang. It wasn't flashy, it was surgical, but the true turning point came with 6 minutes left in the third. Knicks up 7, Garden rocking, and then Brunson goes down. Broken hand. Just like that, New York's engine was gone. You could feel the air leave the building. And Indiana? They pounced. From that moment on, they pressed every advantage. Nembhard took over primary ball handling duties and shredded the Knicks in pick and roll. He kept dragging defenders into the middle, then spraying out to corners. Nesmith and Shepard knocked down back-to-back threes to give Indiana the lead. And defensively, it was suffocating. They forced the Knicks into tough, late-clock isolation looks, nothing easy, nothing in rhythm. By the time the fourth quarter started, the Pacers had seized full control, but they didn't relax. They pushed harder. With 3 minutes left, Haliburton came off a double drag screen, pulled up from the top, and drilled a cold-blooded three to go up 10. That was the dagger. The Garden was silent. All you could hear were Pacers players yelling on the bench, from down 12 early to up double digits late. Indiana had delivered one of the most cold-hearted Game 7 performances in recent playoff history. Not because of one explosion, but because they choked the life out of New York slowly, methodically, and with absolute confidence. That's not just a comeback. That's a statement. By the time Indiana reached the conference finals, the narrative had already been written for them. The Thunder were the top seed. Young, explosive, elite on both ends. The kind of team built not just to win now, but to dominate. Game 1 was supposed to be their message to the league. And for the first 36 minutes, it was. OKC blitzed out the gate with surgical defense and relentless transition play. Their cross-matching left Indiana scrambling. No matchups to exploit. No rhythm. Just chaos. Haliburton couldn't find space. Siakam kept getting fronted in the post, and every time Indiana tried to run a set, the Thunder blew it up with a perfect switch or a peel help. At one point in the third, the Pacers had just 61 points. Down 16, legs looking heavy, body language fading. It felt over, but then came the spark. And again, it wasn't loud, it started on defense. Caruso fought over a screen, got back in front of SGA, and forced a contested mid-range brick. Next trip down, Siakam grabbed the board and went coast to coast. No pass, just power. Bucket. Then Haliburton, who had been quiet all game, rose up from deep off a ghost screen and hit from 30. Thunder called timeout, but the wave had already started. This wasn't about one run. It was wave after wave. Rick Carlisle made one of the boldest mid-game adjustments you'll see. He put Siakam at the 5 again and surrounded him with 4 guards. OKC had to pull Chet out to defend the arc, and that broke everything. Now the paint was exposed. Haliburton found daylight. Nesmith cut back door. Nembhard floated into the corner. Suddenly, every closeout was a step late, and it didn't stop there. On defense, Indiana began blitzing the ball handler, then instantly rotating behind it. The Thunder couldn't find a clean window. Their rhythm vanished. Giddey was forced into late-clock jumpers. J-Dub couldn't isolate with Siakam shadowing him. SGA tried to take over, but Caruso stuck to him like glue, fighting through every screen, always in his chest. With 4 minutes left, Haliburton came off a flare and hit another long-range bomb to bring the game within 2. The next possession, Siakam bullied his way through Dort to tie it up, and then Caruso again jumped a passing lane and ignited a fast break. Haliburton tossed a lob to Toppin, and just like that, Indiana had the lead. But the final minute, that was all discipline, no panic. No forced shots, just execution up 1 with 30 seconds left. They ran a high horn set with Siakam and Caruso screening. Haliburton rejected the screen, split the defenders, floated into the lane, and dropped in the softest teardrop you'll ever see. Then, on the final possession, the Pacers switched everything, forced SGA into a fall-away contested 3. Front rim game. Over the Pacers had just pulled off a 17-point fourth-quarter comeback on the league's best defense. On their court. In the biggest game of the year. It wasn't supposed to happen. But Indiana doesn't care about supposed to. They just keep doing it. 4 times now, they've been pushed to the edge, and every time, they've answered with grit, belief, and absolute precision. These aren't just comebacks. They're proof. Proof that this team is real. That when the lights get brighter, the Pacers only get tougher. And the scariest part, they're not done yet.